Everybody wants to be chosen. Everybody wants to feel wanted. Everybody wants to hear, "You're enough." But what if I told you, the real power doesn't come from being picked. It comes from learning how to stand when nobody's clapping for you. See, most people are terrified of being alone. They jump from relationship to relationship, not because they found love, but because they're running from silence. They're running from the mirror. They're running from the work they know they need to do on themselves. And that's why staying single is a power most people never develop. Because when you're alone, there's no one to distract you from who you really are. No one to carry your emotional weight. No one to rescue you from your own responsibility. It's just you and your potential. When you stay single with purpose, you're not waiting, you're building. You're building your discipline. You're building your mindset. You're building your standards so high that not just anyone gets access to your time, your energy, or your future. See, weak people need relationships to feel whole. Strong people become whole first, then choose wisely. And that's what today is about. Not running from loneliness, not begging for validation, not settling for comfort, but stepping into your power, alone first. So when the world finally meets you, it doesn't meet someone desperate to be loved. It meets someone who already knows their worth. Being single is not loneliness. It's a season of building unshakable self-respect. Most people confuse being alone with being empty, but they're not the same thing. Loneliness comes from feeling disconnected from yourself, while being single gives you the space to finally connect. When you're not in a relationship, you're no longer outsourcing your sense of worth to someone else. You stop waiting for texts, approval, attention, or reassurance to feel okay. Instead, you begin learning how to validate yourself, and that is where real self-respect starts to grow. Self-respect is not something you talk about. It's something you practice. And being single gives you daily opportunities to practice it. You decide how you spend your time. You decide what standards you live by. You decide what you tolerate and what you walk away from. There is no partner to lean on, no emotional crutch, no one to hide behind. Just you and your choices. Every disciplined action you take while you're single. Waking up early, working on your goals, protecting your peace, saying no to distractions, sends a message to your own mind that you matter. And when your mind starts believing that, your whole identity begins to shift. Most people enter relationships hoping someone else will treat them better than they treat themselves. But when you stay single with purpose, you flip that script. You start treating yourself with so much respect that anyone who enters your life has to rise to your level. You no longer chase attention. You attract alignment. You stop asking, "Do they want me?" and start asking, "Do they deserve access to me?" That shift only happens when you've spent time alone building your standards instead of begging for acceptance. Being single also forces you to face yourself honestly. You see your habits, your fears, your patterns. You can't blame anyone else for your mood, your progress, or your setbacks. That responsibility builds maturity, and maturity builds confidence. Not loud confidence, not fake confidence, but quiet, unshakable confidence. The kind that doesn't need to be seen. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. The kind that walks into any room knowing, "I'm good with myself." When you develop that level of self-respect, you stop settling. You stop shrinking. You stop negotiating your values just to keep someone around. You would rather walk alone in peace than stay in company that costs you your dignity. And that's the real power of being single. It's not about avoiding love. It's about becoming the kind of person who will never again accept a love that feels less than what you know you deserve. Most people rush into relationships to escape themselves. Power comes from standing alone first. A lot of people don't want connection. They want distraction. They don't want partnership. They want a pause button on their own thoughts. So they fill the silence with someone else's presence, hoping it will quiet the voice inside that says, "You need to grow." But growth doesn't happen in noise. It happens in stillness, when there's nowhere to hide and no one to lean on. Standing alone forces you to confront who you are without an audience. No performance, no pleasing, no pretending, just you and your reality. You start noticing the habits you've been avoiding, the discipline you've been delaying, the goals you keep postponing. When you're in a relationship too early, You can hide behind it. You can say, I'm busy, we're doing this, they need me. But when you're alone, you can't escape your own potential. It stares at you every morning and asks, what are you going to do with today? Power comes from answering that question with action. When you choose to stand alone, you stop running from discomfort and start using it. You wake up and there's no one to motivate you but you. No one to organize your life but you. No one to push you but you. And that's where strength is built. In the quiet mornings, in the lonely nights, in the moments when quitting would be easier than committing to yourself. Every time you show up for your goals with no one watching, you build a muscle most people never develop: self-reliance. And self-reliance changes everything. You stop needing someone to complete you because you've already done the work of becoming whole. You stop chasing people for emotional security because you've learned how to create your own. You stop fearing abandonment because you know you can stand on your own feet. That's real power. Not needing, not begging, not clinging, but choosing. Most people want love to save them. Strong people use solitude to shape them. They use time alone to sharpen their thinking, elevate their standards, and strengthen their discipline. They read, they train, they build, they reflect. While others are busy numbing themselves with relationships they're not ready for, these people are preparing for a future they actually deserve. Standing alone first also teaches you discernment. When you've been comfortable with yourself, you can tell the difference between someone who adds to your life and someone who just takes from it. You don't get blinded by attention. You don't get trapped by chemistry. You look for alignment, not excitement, because you know what it took to build your peace, and you're not about to hand it over to someone who didn't help you create it. That's why power comes from standing alone first. Not because relationships are bad, but because without solitude, you never become strong enough to choose the right one. Discipline grows fastest when you're not distracted by emotional dependency. When your mood, your focus, and your motivation are tied to someone else's presence, your energy is constantly pulled outward instead of being built inward. You wake up checking messages instead of checking your goals. You plan your days around someone else's schedule instead of your own purpose. That doesn't make you bad. It just makes you unfocused. And focus is the foundation of discipline. Emotional dependency creates noise in your mind. You start thinking about how someone feels about you instead of how you feel about your work. You start wondering where they are instead of where you're going. You start reacting instead of creating. Discipline can't survive in that environment. It needs clarity. It needs consistency. It needs your full attention. When you remove emotional distractions, your mind finally has space to lock in on what matters. When you're single with intention, your routines become sharper. You go to sleep earlier because no one is pulling you into late-night emotional conversations that drain your energy. You wake up with purpose because your time belongs to your vision, not someone else's expectations. You train your body, your mind, your habits without interruption. Every small act of consistency compounds into a strong identity. You're no longer trying to impress anyone. You're trying to improve yourself. Discipline also grows when you stop looking for emotional comfort and start building emotional control. Instead of venting, you reflect. Instead of complaining, you execute. Instead of escaping discomfort, you use it. You learn how to sit with pressure without collapsing. You learn how to move forward even when you don't feel supported. That kind of mental toughness doesn't come from being held up by someone else. It comes from holding yourself up when no one else is there. Most people lose discipline because they let emotions run their lives. If they feel lonely, they reach for attention. If they feel bored, they seek stimulation. If they feel stressed, they look for escape. But when you're focused on building yourself, you stop letting emotions control your actions. You act based on your values, not your feelings. And that's what real discipline is, doing what needs to be done even when your emotions are screaming for comfort. Being free from emotional dependency doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become strong. You don't shut people out, but you don't need them to function. Your happiness doesn't collapse when someone leaves. Your progress doesn't stop when someone disagrees with you. Your confidence doesn't fade when someone stops giving you attention. You become rooted in who you are and what you're building. That's when your discipline becomes unbreakable, because it's no longer powered by motivation or approval. It's powered by identity. You don't show up because someone is watching. You show up because that's who you are. And once you reach that level, nothing outside of you can slow you down. Solitude sharpens your purpose, your standards, and your vision. When you remove the noise of other people's expectations, opinions, and emotional demands, you finally hear your own voice clearly. Most people don't know what they want because they're constantly reacting to what others want from them. They're busy adjusting, pleasing, and compromising before they ever decide who they really are. Solitude interrupts that pattern. It creates space to think, reflect, and ask the hard questions about your life without interference. Purpose becomes clear in quiet moments. When you're alone, you start noticing what excites you, what drains you, and what feels meaningful. You're no longer doing things to impress anyone. You're doing them because they matter to you. That's how direction is formed. Not in crowds, not in constant conversation, but in stillness when your mind has room to explore what kind of life you actually want to build. Solitude strips away the fake goals and reveals the real ones. Your standards also rise when you spend time alone. You begin to understand your worth, not based on how others treat you, but on how you treat yourself. You stop accepting disrespect, inconsistency, and half-effort because you've learned how valuable your peace is. When you're comfortable in your own company, you don't settle for relationships, jobs, or environments that lower your energy. You choose what aligns with your growth. And once your standards go up, your entire life changes because everything you allow into your world has to earn its place. Vision is sharpened in solitude too. When you're not constantly reacting to other people's problems, drama, or emotions, you can finally look ahead. You start thinking long-term instead of just surviving day to day. You see possibilities instead of limitations. You imagine who you could become instead of obsessing over who you used to be. Solitude gives you the mental clarity to design your future instead of drifting into it. Being alone also teaches you self-trust. You learn how to make decisions without needing validation. You stop asking everyone for permission to be yourself. You take responsibility for your direction. And that builds confidence that doesn't shake when someone disagrees with you. When your purpose is clear, your standards are strong, and your vision is focused, you stop moving like someone who's lost. You move like someone who knows exactly where they're going. Solitude isn't isolation. It's alignment. It's the process of becoming so clear on who you are and what you want that the world can't confuse you anymore. And when you reach that level, you don't chase opportunities, relationships, or approval. You attract what matches the clarity you've built inside yourself. Staying single is not waiting for love. It's preparing to become someone unforgettable. Too many people see being single as a pause in life, like nothing is happening until someone shows up. But the truth is, this is the most important season of all. This is the season where you're not being shaped by someone else's expectations. You're being shaped by your own standards. You're not reacting to love. You're becoming someone worthy of it. When you're single with intention, every day becomes training. You're training your mindset, your habits, your emotional control, your discipline. You're learning how to manage your time, your energy, your money, and your focus without leaning on anyone else. That builds a kind of strength that can't be faked. You stop trying to look impressive and start becoming impressive. And the world can feel that difference. Being unforgettable isn't about looks, status, or popularity. It's about presence. It's about walking into a room and carrying a calm confidence that doesn't beg for attention. It's about speaking with clarity, moving with purpose, and standing on values you refuse to compromise. That kind of presence is built in solitude. It's built when no one is watching you wake up early. It's built when no one is clapping for your effort. It's built when you choose growth over comfort again and again. Most people want someone to love them as they are. But the powerful ones ask a different question. Who am I becoming? They don't wait to be chosen. They work to become undeniable. They read when others scroll. They train when others complain. They reflect when others escape. They invest in themselves while the rest of the world is distracted. That's how you become unforgettable. Not by luck, but by intention. When you build yourself in this season, you don't enter your next relationship hoping to be saved. You enter it bringing value. You bring stability. You bring vision. You bring emotional strength, and that changes everything. You're no longer looking for someone to fill a void. You're looking for someone to walk beside the life you've already built. Being single also teaches you patience. You stop chasing instant connection and start respecting long-term alignment. You stop falling for words and start paying attention to actions. You stop giving access to people who haven't earned it. That's maturity. And maturity is attractive. Not flashy attractive, powerful attractive. The kind that doesn't need to try. So don't see this season as empty. See it as sacred. This is where you're becoming someone the future will recognize. Someone strong, someone focused, someone unforgettable. And if this message spoke to you, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.